the Start Your Own Business podcast. Hear inspiring startup stories and get reliable expert advice on how to start your business and get off to the best possible start. Brought to you by Startup Donut, helping small businesses succeed.
Hi there, thanks for joining us. You're listening to the Start Your Own Business podcast. My name's Fiona Pryor and I'm your host. This episode is the second part in our two-part special mini-series looking at small business websites. In the previous episode, we looked at how you can optimise your small business website so it ranks highly on search engine results pages. In this episode, we'll be exploring how you can turn that web traffic into paying customers. How can you ensure your website delivers what your customers expect? What are the essential elements for every website? And why does design matter? And how do you keep visitors engaged and coming back for more? Answering these questions and many more besides is Craig Murphy, founder of Birmingham-based Alt Agency, the sponsor of this episode. Craig's an expert in website design, development and maintenance, and he's helped many businesses just like you to create compelling websites that convert leads into sales. Before we speak to Craig, let's find out a little bit more about the Alt Agency.
Struggling to get your website to rank on search engines? Need a standout site? Meet Alt Agency, the Midlands-based WordPress agency where SEO and web design excellence go hand in hand. Led by SEO specialist Craig Murphy, Alt Agency has earned numerous 5-star reviews on Google and Clutch. They create bespoke SEO strategies that drive targeted traffic and deliver real results. From in-depth keyword research to stunning user-friendly WordPress websites, Alt Agency ensures your site ranks highly and converts visitors into loyal customers. With more than 15 years' experience and a focus on user experience and post-launch support, Alt Agency combines technical expertise with creative design. Learn more at www.altagency.co.uk. That's www.altagency.co.uk.
It's time to welcome back our guest, Craig Murphy. Hi there, Craig. It's good to speak to you again.
Hello, Fiona. Yes, thanks for having me back.
So in the previous episode, we were talking about SEO and how you can make sure that you're found online. What are the most important steps as a small business owner once you've got yourself online and you've got web traffic coming to your site?
So as we were speaking about on the last podcast, getting found in search engines is the first key step. Obviously, to do that, someone would have optimized their website for SEO, putting the right keywords in the right place, and hopefully after a period of time, they'd be ranking quite well in Google. And now, once you're ranking quite well in Google, that obviously translates to people clicking through to your website, traffic to your website. So the next step is what we call conversion rate optimization, or CRO for short. And that's basically optimizing the traffic for a main goal to ensure that traffic converts.
So how does the design of your website then influence a visitor's purchasing decision?
So often it's quite significant, and not just the design itself, but how long the design takes to load, what messaging's in the design, the type of imagery included in the design. So conveying your key message within your design, who you are, what you do, and what you want the visitor to do next is quite key in influencing a visitor's journey with inquiry or purchasing through your website. So if you're a hotel, for instance, and your design and messaging will clearly state who you are, what you do. So for example, we're a hotel in London, offering rooms with a view over Hyde Park, for example, for £700 a night. And then you'd have a main call to action, for example, which would be click here to book now. If you're a local residential plumber in Birmingham, for example, the messaging might be geared towards getting people on the phone. So the messaging might be around, we're residential plumbers in Birmingham, no call out charge, trusted reviews, click here to call us now, and then your phone number. So that's how the design can influence people contacting you. But how that message is presented is also quite important as well. So you've got nice, clean fonts that are bold, easy to understand, easy to read, making sure the messaging is super clear, and using coloured buttons to draw attention for the call to action. So instead of just having white text on a black background, for example, saying call us now, you'd use different colours and maybe even put the phone number or the book now on a contrasting coloured button, for example. And the design has to build trust as well. So for purchasing online, design elements that make the journey super clear, showcasing products in the best possible light, great imagery, great videos, great descriptive text, and again, strong call to actions all help as good what we call trust signals. So making sure you're showing that the website's safe, it's secure, you've got free returns, free next day delivery, trusted payment gateways like PayPal, for example, showing all these little icons for Visa, MasterCard. They all help build trust as well if you're a e-commerce retailer, for example.
So those are the things that that work in your favour. What about things that people get wrong, and what do people need to avoid when they're trying to increase their optimization?
Yeah, so there's a couple of common design makes that should be avoided. The first one's usually accessibility. Obviously, not everybody can read text on screens. Some people have difficulty with the text and the contrasting colours. So making sure that the website can be read by a screen reader, that the alt tags are in place, which you spoke about on the previous SEO episode, so that the descriptions for the images are in place. Responsiveness is super important as well these days. So making sure that the desktop website translates well to mobile and tablet devices. Or you'd be very surprised how many mobile websites these days still look completely different to desktop devices. So as users are switching between the two, if they do, it can look completely inconsistent.
Yeah, you can find that
And
bits are missing.
yeah, absolutely, yes. Or just the whole color scheme can be completely different. The whole layout and the flow can be completely different to the desktop website. So just ensuring the consistency between devices is there. Slow loading times is a very, very important one as well. Even though internet speeds are very fast these days, we still get websites these days that load 15, 20 seconds, which is way, way too slow. Ideally, you want to be loading in 3 seconds. 5 is a very, very, very worst case. So ensuring images are optimized and that, the website loads super quick. And there's tools out there to manage the page speed. Google have got a tool called Google Page Insights, and this measures how quick it takes your website to load. So ensuring that it just loads as super quick as possible, not just on internet, but also again on mobile devices on 4G. So testing that your phone loads super quick on 4G as well. And another thing that is often neglected and done quite poorly is having an unclear navigation and website messaging. So you have around 3 seconds from when somebody lands on your website to tell them who you are, what you do, and what you want them to do next, which is the example I spoke about earlier with we're a London hotel with views of Hyde Park, click here to book a room. You want a nice, super clear message like that. So you're just literally taking the visitor by the hand and guiding them to what you want them to do next, whether that's make an online booking, make an online payment, or to call you as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really value. I mean, I know I do it myself. If I'm looking for something, if I can't find it straight away, or if something takes too long, just click away to the next one that's come up in your search engine results and try that one, because we all want everything immediately these days. So yeah, that's a really really important point, I think. So you've mentioned there mobile optimization. Presumably that's a really key thing these days, because I know most people will use their phone predominantly when they're searching, because we've got our phones with us all the time when we're out and about. So mobile optimization is key for sales then.
Yeah, absolutely essential these days, especially with e-commerce clients. So if you're selling something online or you're providing emergency services, like an emergency plumber, emergency locksmith, people tend to be on the phone really quick, or locked out the house, locked out the car, and the phone is the only device that they've got. And we're finding with e-commerce retailers and for our smaller clients who offer that type of service, especially locksmith service, 70 to 80% of their traffic on average is from mobile devices. And
Blimey.
if you go back 5 to 8 years ago, especially pre-COVID, online buying habits were slightly different. People tended to use the phones back then to do more research. They didn't really trust buying online. Obviously, it's got more secure with Google Wallet and Apple Wallet as well. So you just press the button and you don't need to put your card details in,
Yeah.
which has helped boost the trust for buying online. So these types of transactions, these smaller transactions, booking train tickets, booking hairdresser appointments, getting in touch with emergency gas engineers, plumbers, locksmiths, they tend to be done on the phones a lot more than what they were pre-COVID. And there's lots of things that you can do to boost online sales conversions through mobile devices, especially with e-commerce sites.
Mm.
So ensuring the imagery is optimized for mobile as well. A lot of websites, and not just e-commerce, but websites in general, they tend to put desktop imagery, which could be like huge images onto little tiny mobile screens without resizing them properly. That can cause the website to load slower as well. And with mobile devices as well, there's something that we call clunky thumbs. And it's just how people interact with like navigations on websites. We've all done it where we've gone to click something, we end up clicking a picture or a phone number or something and calling somebody
I love that. I've never
accident.
heard that before. What do you say? Clunky thumbs?
Clunky thumbs, yes, it's just a term that web designers use. I don't know if all of them do, but it's certainly one I've come across a lot. And when researching this as well, that they use the term clunky thumbs, which is just basically hitting the wrong thing. Or text links as well. If somebody says, click here to call us, and it's just written there, it's not a button, it can be very difficult to press an actual line of text. So that's why we always recommend using buttons for call to actions, because they're just bigger and more optimized.
So another thing that I've heard is, really important is once you've got traffic to your site, is sort of firstly keeping them engaged, showing them all the things that you can offer, but also encouraging visitors to come back to your site. So have you got any tips for users on those two things?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's the holy grail of what we try to do is keep visitors coming back again and again. And again, it depends what kind of service you offer. Obviously, if you're an emergency plumber, you wouldn't really want people coming back day after day unless you've done a really bad job, for example. But you'll often hear of people saying how they won't use a certain app or website because of just how clunky it is to use. So just making sure that firstly that your website is super simple to use, and you can run some tests on this yourself without having to spend any money. You can just ask like your children, family members just to check your website on the phone and their computer, and just ask some simple questions. If you were to land on this website, do you understand who we are, what we do? Would you know how to phone us? Would you know how to find our phone number? Sorry. Would you know to fill the contact form out? Is the contact form clear? Would you contact us? So you can run little tests amongst family and friends. But away from the user side of it, great engaging content is absolutely key. And if you think of some of the sites that you'll frequent, it's mainly for content, whether it's news sites or like I always read Formula One news, so I'm always going back for the latest Formula One news. But for more to make this more targeted, for example, if you're a plumber or a hairdresser, people are only going to come to you when they need you to book an appointment to get your hair cut, or they've got a leak, for example. So you'd want to build content around that, for example. So like if you're a hairdresser, you might want to have the best types of haircut for over 50s, the best types of hair color for summer, the best types of hair color for the winter, and
Yeah.
just provide this content so it's out all year round and just keep people coming back and be engaged for that. But with coming onto e-commerce sites, this can be a lot more difficult to get people to coming back. There's something that we call cart abandonment, which
Yep.
you would have seen if you've gone onto a website, you've got halfway through purchasing something and you've changed your mind for whatever reason. You've gone off looking for a discount code, you couldn't find one, or you've got distracted. And if you've put your email address in there at some point during the checkout phase, you can send emails 30 minutes later, an hour later saying, oh, did you have an issue with the website? Here's 10% off, come back and buy now,
Yeah.
or here's free shipping. So that's one way to keep people coming back. But unless you've got somebody's personal details, you kind of want to build the content around it. Build your newsletter. If you're an e-commerce site, offer them 10% off, for example, on their first purchase. Build the Instagram, the social profiles. You can put your content on your website. How to fix a boiler that's not working in the winter when you have to put the water bottle on the condensate pipe, for example. You can put that as your content, but then distribute it across different platforms, across social, build your newsletter, distribute it, and then drive people back to your website that way.
Yeah, I've got a friend and he hires out wedding marquees, and he does some great content. So he'll show you kind of designs for different weddings in different seasons, or if you want a rustic theme, here here's how the marquee's been decorated, and that's really interesting because it's seasonal. There's something different, every time you go back to the site, there's photos of weddings that he's done. So there's always something new to see that inspires ideas. And I've got another friend who's a florist who does a similar thing. She'll give you kind of videos on how to put together, bouquets for the flowers that are in season right now. So yeah, it's just keeping up something fresh, I suppose, or something new for people to see every time they come back.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of things in the news as well. So just help with different types of content that small business websites should have. If you're a hairdresser, maybe a celebrity shaves their head or does something crazy with their hair, that's unexpected. It's a talking piece. So just
Yeah.
write it on that. You can talk about, why it works for this person, why not might not work for person B, for example. So just what creating content around what's trending at the minute can often help as
Topical.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
topical,
absolutely.
yes. And if you're a hotel, for example, or something like that, or as a florist, for example, you might put like, the top 10 best floral ideas for Mother's Day, Father's Day, for Christmas, for birthdays. If you're a hotel, the best 10 things to do in the local area, as an
Yeah.
example, because people are going to be searching these, so they might not be looking for you exactly, but they'll come across you from these content bits and then hopefully contact you from there. But again, with all these bits of content, the key, of course, is to have that main strong call to action at the end of it. It's okay talking about how to fix your boiler in the winter, for example, but some people feel uncomfortable doing that kind of stuff if it's putting the. I've had to do it myself, where you get the guides to put the water bottle on the condensate pipe when your boiler stops working in the winter.
Yeah.
So some people feel uncomfortable, so you just want that strong call to action at the end, which says, if this doesn't fix it, or if you feel uncomfortable doing it, you need further help, call
Give
us
us a
now. So
call. Here's our
exactly,
number.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. So calls of action, we've talked about those, and you've mentioned this briefly earlier on in the conversation, but presumably placement matters. If you want people to see it and to get hold of it. So where should people be thinking about placing their calls to action? Are there any hot tips on that?
Yeah, so there's a few different places. As high up on your homepage as possible is usually the main place to put it. So most traffic to websites, especially with our clients anyway, tends to be landing on the homepage. So usually you've got that 3 seconds, as I mentioned earlier. Here's who we are. Here's what we do. Here's what we do the next. Whether that's call, buy now, book a room, for example. That's where the main call to action would be. If you're like a local tradesman, for example, a plumber, a hairdresser, you might have your phone number in the top right of your navigation, but you want to repeat it in a few places throughout your content and through your homepage. So, for example, on our homepage, we've got our call to action repeated twice. We've got it at the top of the page, and then we have a big block at the bottom which says, if you want to help with your website, click here to call us now, just so it's stupidly obvious at the top and bottom of the page as
Yeah,
people
and we're talking
scroll
about
through.
buttons, we're talking about using colour, so placement, colour, and making it stand out in whatever way you can, being the kind of the holy grail really of your calls to action.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing to stress for this is that there's no specific place to put it that's going to be like a magic bullet. It's all about testing. Conversion rate optimization, if there's one thing I can convey through this podcast, is that it's just all about testing. Test it at the top, test it at the bottom, test it both locations, test it in the middle, test it with different colors, test it with different language. So, and just to take a step back there, obviously a call to action it's basically either some text or a button with an instruction on it, such as add to basket, buy now, book now, call now, for example. And they're usually what takes the user to your main goal at the end of the funnel to complete either a purchase or an inquiry on your website. They are usually contrasted colored buttons. So, for example, if you went on our website on mobile, altagency.co.uk, we've got our button fixed across the bottom. So if you're an emergency plumber or locksmith, for example, you might just have a tap to call us right now at the bottom. So it doesn't matter what page someone's on, where they're scrolling through, it's always there at the bottom. And since we did that as well, I believe our calls increased by 500% over form inquiries, just because we put the floating tap to call us now button on every single page.
So to be clear what you mean on that, you mean that basically as you're scrolling down the page, the button moves with you?
Yeah, it's just completely fixed. It looks like it's just sitting at the bottom of your mobile phone, and you'll see it on e-commerce sites as well.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a product and you're scrolling down, you've gone past a picture, reading about the description about it or reading some reviews, that buy now button is always just fixed at the bottom of the phone. It's always there. So it's like it's following you as you scroll down, and it just keeps in mind the main call to action. Somebody just presses it, and that helps them further down the funnel.
So conversion rate optimization, why is that important to small businesses?
Yes, it's super important because it's the one metric that you can measure to basically make more money for your business. So, in very simple terms, conversion rate optimization is optimizing your website to convert more visitors to complete your primary goal, whether that's picking up the phone and calling you, filling out a form, or buying your product, for example. So, if you're a hairdresser, as an example, and your main goal is to get online appointments, if 100 people come to your website and six make an appointment during a period of time, you normally do this over like a weekly or a monthly period, and six people make an appointment, then 6% will be your conversion rate, for example, as long as they go through and complete the whole process. And that percentage in that example, 6%, is super important because um, that's the percentage that you're always trying to increase. Obviously, 6%, you get to 8%. It's obviously more cash in the bank is what it should translate to. But so when you're improving things like your page speed, changing imagery, changing messaging, changing button color, all of these in some way often affect the conversion rate, either positively or negatively. But you want to work out that base conversion rate and always look to improve on it from there.
And testing is an important part of that. And I know, when you run a marketing campaign, for example, you might send visitors to different pages. And that's a way of testing which one works better for you. So, the ultimate aim can be the same, but you do have two slightly different layout pages or slightly different text. So that's a way of checking which is working better for you.
Yeah, that's probably more of an advanced technique. We call that split testing or A/B testing. You might have heard it. It's where you basically get two pages. They can be almost identical, and maybe just the headlines change in them or the color of the buttons change. And you basically put some code on your website, and there's tutorials online that you can do this. And 50% of your traffic will go to page A, 50% of your traffic will automatically go to page B, and then you can work out which one's performing better from there. And then you use that as your next baseline, make another tweak, and then run another split test. And you're just constantly trying to improve these little tiny percents here and there. They all compound and make a big effect over time.
So you talked earlier about the importance of building trust when you're designing your website. How can small businesses build trust and credibility through their website? What top tips have you got for people on that?
Yeah, so if you're a member of any accreditations, if you've got any accreditations, so like if you're a member of the local chamber of commerce, if you're a gas engineer, for example, showing your gas safe logo, if you're an online retailer, showing things like the Visa logo, the PayPal logos, that the checkout secure, all of these things help build trust, making your business look real. There's so many online retailers that you'll look at online, and they just don't look like real businesses. They don't have an address there. They don't have a map of the location there. There's no phone number, and it might just be a generic contact us form. So you don't feel like you're going to be able to speak to a human. So putting things on there like your phone number, your location on the map, showing your reviews on there as well. They all help build credibility. If you're an online retailer, showing your returns policy, your delivery method, when you can, if you buy now within the next 5 hours, guarantee next day delivery, all of these tiny, tiny things. And there's tens and tens, if not hundreds of them, which all, when compounded, build up that bigger picture of credibility. But you definitely want to be showing reviews as well at the very least, or something like Trustpilot or Google reviews. They're widgets which you just integrate onto your website, and you can see the 5-star reviews that the business has got, which also helps build credibility.
Yeah, I know that. I'm certainly a big fan of that. I always check out reviews first.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why they're super important. They're very important as part of social proof, because it goes towards building trust and credibility that you were trusting on. So, as a business owner, you really want other people saying good things about your business. And as a web agency, we've got 80 plus 5-star reviews. And when people inquire and they send us messages through, they'll say, "Oh, we saw you on Google. We saw you've got great reviews, so we wanted to speak with you." So it certainly helps from the social proof point of view. And it works on the flip side as well. Imagine seeing a plumber or a restaurant with really poor reviews. You're just going to flick straight through it. So yeah, it has the opposite effect.
I think
well.
that's the thing now with social media now, isn't it? That bad news spreads very quickly. So if you haven't done a good job.
Absolutely, yeah, it can destroy a business overnight. So yeah, you want the positive reviews, you want to showcase them. It just helps do the selling for you.
Blow your own trumpet.
Exactly, yes.
So we talked a little bit there about sort of split testing and things like that, and I suppose an important part with any sales funnel, whether it's through traditional marketing or online sales or whatever it might be, is knowing where customers are dropping off and not going through to the completion point. So how do you do that online? How do you know where you're losing customers and where things are going wrong for you in your process?
Yeah, it's a great question, and this part can be a little bit complex as well, especially if you've got no experience in managing websites. It's just another thing to put onto the business owner's plate. But having a tool like Google Analytics in place, which is fundamental for conversion rate optimization anyway, you need to be monitoring the basic figures anyway. But something like Google Analytics, it can monitor what pages people land on, and it can map a journey out as well. So you can see 100 people landed on your homepage, 30 went to your About Us page, 60 from left, and then 10% went to your Contact Us page, for example. So you can monitor journeys in a visual way, and you can monitor some drop-offs from there. There are other more advanced tools as well, which are super important, and they take away the data and they're more visual. There's a tool out there called Hotjar and one called Microsoft Clarity. And basically, you need a web developer to help with this, just to put the code onto your website, most likely. But every time a visitor comes to your website, it records a whole interaction. So you can record somebody from when the second they land on your website to when they exit. So instead of looking at analytics and trying to guess what's wrong, you can actually watch and see where people are clicking and see firsthand where people are leaving and try and make assumptions as to why. It's just these tools like Hotjar and Microsoft Clarity make it more visual, and it's a lot quicker to come to conclusions.
Yeah, that's really handy. And you talked about Google Analytics. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes there. So I guess that's something that people who maybe have had a website for a while, been familiar perhaps with the old version, but the new version, I know from our personal experience, implementing that on our own donut websites was actually quite tricky, and we did need help to do that so that you can actually still get the data that you've been reliant on for a period of time. So is that something that you would recommend small businesses get help with?
Yes, I mean, depending on how competent, obviously, the small business owner is, there are tutorials online. Quite simply, you can jump onto Google and search for things like set up Google Analytics goal conversion tracking and these type of things, and how to find reports in Google Analytics and they can get videos, 4 or 5 minute videos that give the answers straight away. But yeah, as a worst case, if you're time poor and you don't have the time and resources to do it, you might need the help of a web agency just in the initial phase, just set it all up for you and then just point you in the right direction. Say, look, here's where you find your report to see where traffic's dropping off. Here's where you find your conversion rate. Here's where you can find where all your traffic's coming from. So just get the basics set up and then you should be able to run with it from there.
And have you got any tips for small businesses on how they can follow up with people who are dropping off or who aren't getting to the end, the desired end point, and, putting their payment details in and ordering their new mountain bike or new dog beds? How can you follow up on those where people aren't getting to all the way?
Yeah, so if you're an e-commerce site, it's a little bit easier, because obviously if you're a service provider like a plumber, you're probably never ever going to know who that person is who came to your website, and you've got no chance of following up with them. If you're an e-commerce site, as we mentioned earlier, there's the cart abandonment software that we spoke about. So somebody goes part way through your checkout, or they're logged into their account and their email address is collected in some way. Obviously, you need to tweak your GDPR policies to accommodate this as well and make sure you've got permissions to do it. But if somebody comes and they don't purchase and they only get halfway through, you can then send them an email sequence. You'd probably do it over 3 to 5 days. Normally within 30 to 45 minutes, you want the first email out saying, notice you were looking at product A, notice you didn't check out, was there an issue? Here's 10% off to help you on your way. If they still don't do it, maybe you'd email them again 2 or 3 days later and offer them something different, a different offer. So it might not just be 10% off, but it could be 10% off plus free express delivery, for example. So that's one way of doing it. Again, with e-commerce sites and other sites, they should really be built in their own social platforms and the newsletter, because when you're on that, you can always get people to your website in theory as you wish. But if you are like a plumber or a hairdresser, for example, it's very difficult to get people back because people's privacy is protected a lot these days. And so that's the whole idea of conversion rate optimization, is to convert as many when they land on your website. But again, if they do leave your website, there's something called remarketing. And you might have seen this where if you've been on, I don't know, Curry's website, for example, looked at app or MacBook, you've then gone onto Facebook or Instagram, suddenly you've got adverts for MacBooks absolutely everywhere. And that's called remarketing. And it just seems like the product or the service or the company is following you around the internet, and that works on cookies, but it can be cookieless as well. But that's probably one way of getting people who you've not got their data for, but you've got, they've opted into cookies, just to track them and try and entice them back to your website by showing them a banner saying, come back, Apple MacBook 10% off, for example. That's one way of getting people back to your website when you've not got their details.
That's brilliant. So wrapping up, what 3 tips would you give to our listeners on how they can optimize their website's conversion rate?
Yeah, so based on our experience and the most common issues that we get, the first thing, the key takeaway for everyone to take would just be testing. Test absolutely everything. Test buttons, test button colors, test button placement, test button frequency, test positions of everything, test positions of text. That's easy for me to say. Test the language that you're using as well on buttons. So for example, instead of saying click here, make it more descriptive. Click here to buy now, click here to check out, click here to check out securely, for example. Just testing all these different things is absolutely essential, because that's what conversion rate optimization is. It's making a tweak and testing the impact it's had on the conversion rate. And then some more specific things, the common issues that we normally come across is page speed. Slow loading websites is usually a quick fix. It could start with your hosting, it could start with the code, but slow loading websites put people off, so making sure your website loads as quickly as possible. And the third one would be just as important, if not more important than that, is to make sure you've got the right tools in place to track and monitor. So make sure you've got Google Analytics in place, make sure you've got your right conversion rate and the tools to monitor all these different metrics. Again, some of these things may need the help of a web developer, but there are online tutorials for how you can work out your conversion rate, how to set up GA4 if you just simply Google search for them.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for your time today, Craig. That is absolutely cram-packed with great tips and advice, and hopefully, our listeners can go away and implement some of these things and find that their website is turbocharged with lots of new sales leads. So thank you for that. That's brilliant.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Cheers. Well, I really think that Craig has packed loads of practical tips and advice in there that will help you increase your conversion rate optimization. And even if you only manage to try a couple of his tips per week, pretty soon you should start to see a positive impact on your sales, your inquiries, or your signups. Craig's also signposted some handy tools and places where you can go to get further help. You can find these repeated in our summary notes, which can be found at www.startyourownbusinesspodcast.co.uk. And if you didn't catch it already, check out part 1, where Craig shares loads of great advice on how you can improve your search engine optimization and increase your chances of being found online. If you want to find out more about Craig or the ALT agency, you'll also find the links in the summary notes. All that remains is to give Craig another big shout out for his time and insights. And if you want to check out part 1 or any of the other episodes from the past series, you can find them all at www.startyourownbusinesspodcast.co.uk. Thanks for listening, and until next time, all the best.